Taeho adjusted his environmental suit as his observation vessel hovered in Earth's upper atmosphere. The blue planet below was categorized as a Class 12 death world by the Council of Galactic Species, a designation reserved for only the most hostile environments in the known universe. No sentient life should have evolved in such conditions, yet somehow, humans had not only survived but thrived. The ship's sensors continuously recorded data that baffled the alien diplomat. Earth's temperature ranges were extreme, from scorching deserts to frozen poles. Its atmosphere contained oxygen, a highly reactive and corrosive gas. Its surface experienced constant geological upheavals, and its weather systems could level entire regions without warning. The planet's star bombarded the surface with radiation daily. By all scientific understanding, intelligent life should have been impossible here. Recording begins. Taeho spoke clearly into his data unit. Earth Observation Mission. Cycle 1. This planet defies conventional classification with its extreme temperature variations, lethal radiation exposure, toxic atmospheric components, and unpredictable weather systems capable of devastating populated areas. He reviewed his mission parameters one final time. The Council wanted to know if humans posed a threat to galactic stability. Previous encounters with Deathworld species had taught the galactic community caution. Such beings were typically aggressive, territorial, and expansionist by necessity. Their harsh evolutionary paths made them dangerous. But early scans of Earth showed something unusual. Massive population centers where humans lived in close proximity, suggesting cooperation rather than competition. Most Deathworld species fight constantly for resources, he muttered to himself. These humans build together. Curious. Taeho's personal scout vessel descended through the atmosphere, its cloaking technology making it invisible to Earth's primitive detection systems. He had selected a remote landing zone near a small human settlement in a region humans called Oregon. The forested area would provide cover while allowing observation of human behavior patterns. The vessel touched down in a clearing. Taeho activated his atmospheric filters and stepped onto Earth soil for the first time. The gravity was stronger than he was accustomed to, but his exoskeleton compensated. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as they adjusted to the harsh sunlight filtered through the trees. Gravity 9.8 meters per second squared. Atmospheric pressure 101.3 kilopascals. Oxygen levels toxic to council species. Human adaptations to survive these conditions must be remarkable, he recorded. Taeho set up his observation post on a ridgeline overlooking the small human settlement. Through his magnification lenses, he watched their daily routines, simple compared to galactic standards, but complex for a species that had only recently discovered basic space travel. On his 3rd day of observation, disaster struck. A dry summer and strong winds had created perfect conditions for a forest fire. Taeho detected it first through his sensors, then saw the smoke rising in the distance. The fire spread rapidly, moving toward both his position and the human settlement. Evacuating to safe distance, he recorded, returning to his vessel and relocating to higher ground where he could continue observations. What happened next changed his understanding of humans forever. Instead of all residents fleeing the approaching danger, the logical survival response on any world, many humans gathered equipment and moved toward the fire. Through his lenses, Taeho watched in disbelief as they organized into teams. Some created defensive positions to protect homes, others rescued the old and young, and the most unexpected group headed directly into danger to fight the advancing flames. Incomprehensible behavior, he recorded. Subjects are deliberately moving toward life-threatening conditions with primitive containment technology. For hours, he watched as humans battled the wildfire. They'd worked in coordinated teams, communicated constantly, and showed no hesitation in risking their lives. When one human became trapped by shifting flames, 3 others immediately placed themselves in danger to rescue their companion. They value individual survival less than group survival, Taeho noted with fascination. This contradicts Deathworld evolutionary patterns. The fire eventually changed direction due to wind shifts, sparing the settlement. But Teiho's attention was captured by another scene unfolding below. Humans were now rescuing small forest creatures, non-sentient animals that had been injured or displaced by the fire. They endanger themselves for other species that provide no survival benefit, he recorded in astonishment. They expend valuable resources on creatures that are neither food nor tools. That evening, Taiho transmitted his findings to the Council. The encrypted data packet traveled through subspace to the Central Worlds, where the 17 species that made up the Council would review his observations. The response came faster than expected. The Council members were divided. The recorded meeting showed representatives arguing among themselves. This behavior suggests a species evolved beyond mere survival instincts, said the Valish representative, a species known for their logical approach to all matters. Or perhaps more dangerous than we anticipated, countered the Zor diplomat. A species that cooperates so effectively in crisis could be formidable if they ever reach the stars in significant numbers. Their empathy extends beyond their own kind, noted the Lyrics observer. This is unprecedented for Deathworld evolution. The final consensus reached Taiho by morning. Continue observation. Priority increased. These humans represent either a significant opportunity for peaceful contact or the greatest potential threat we have encountered. A species that evolved on such a hostile world yet developed cooperation rather than pure aggression defies all predictive models. Taiho looked down at the settlement, now rebuilding what little damage had occurred. Children played while adults worked together repairing structures. Nothing in his extensive diplomatic training had prepared him for humans. They are shaped by their deadly world, he recorded in his personal log, not just to survive it, but somehow to transcend it. Perhaps what makes them dangerous is not that they are aggressive, but that they are unpredictable. They fight fiercely against nature itself, yet show gentle care to the weakest creatures. I believe we have only begun to understand what makes humans truly the scariest Deathworlders. The Ardani had enjoyed peace for over 700 years. Their crystalline cities floated gently in the atmospheres of gas giants across 3 star systems. They had developed art, music, and philosophy to heights that made them respected throughout the galaxy. But they had forgotten about war. When the Mrekthar invasion fleet first appeared at the edges of the Ardani home system, many believed it was a diplomatic mission. By the time they realized their mistake, 2 outer colonies had already fallen. The Mrekthar were insectoid conquerors with a rigid hive structure and overwhelming numbers. What they lacked in individual creativity, they made up for with perfect coordination and ruthless efficiency. Their ships, shaped like massive barbed spears, cut through Ardani defenses as if they weren't there. In the central command chamber of Crystallis Prime, the last remaining leaders of the Ardani gathered in emergency session. The room's translucent walls, normally set to display peaceful stellar vistas, now showed real-time footage of their colonies falling one by one. "We have lost contact with the 6th colony," reported a junior officer, her voice shaking. The defense grid failed completely. Supreme Commander Jai-Yun, the highest military authority of a society that had almost forgotten the concept of military, looked at the holographic display with growing despair. 80% of their territory had fallen in just 9 weeks. At current rates, they faced extinction within 2 months. "What about the diplomatic envoys?" asked one of the elders. Refused by all major council races, Jai-Yun replied bitterly. They feared drawing the Mrekthar's attention to themselves. The room fell silent. The Ardani, with their fragile bodies and peaceful technology, had no chance against the conquest-evolved Mrekthar. Their calls for help had been ignored by every established spacefaring race. Then a junior diplomat spoke up from the back of the room. "There is one option we haven't considered." All eyes turned to her. The uncontacted species from the Class 12 Deathworld. Earth. Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. Everyone had heard the rumors about Earth from council reports. A planet so hostile that its inhabitants had evolved in constant battle with their own environment. a species that somehow combined extreme violence with unexpected cooperation. They haven't even achieved reliable faster-than-light travel, protested an elder. How could they possibly help us? Because they understand war, Jai Yun said slowly, the idea taking root. While we were creating art, they were fighting. Not just each other, but their entire world. She turned to the young diplomat. Do we have any way to contact them? Yes. Ambassador Tahoe left observation protocols. We can send a message to Earth using his relay. 3 days later, Jai Yun stood before her command staff, her crystalline skin reflecting the light in nervous patterns. The humans have agreed to help us, she announced to her stunned officers. A delegation arrives tomorrow. How? Asked her second-in-command. They don't have ships that can reach us. They're coming through the old Carrion wormhole network. They found a way to stabilize it with their primitive technology. The next day, the human ships emerged from the ancient wormhole near Crystallis Prime. There were only 3 vessels, and they looked nothing like the sleek ships of advanced civilizations. They were bulky, angular, and bristling with what appeared to be redundant systems upon redundant systems. Where Ardani ships were elegant and minimalist, these human vessels seemed overbuilt to an almost comical degree. The Mrekthar intelligence network quickly intercepted communications about the new arrivals. Images of the human delegation meeting with Ardani leaders circulated through the Hive command. Soft-bodied creatures from a gravity well. The Mrekthar Queen's message rippled through her commanders. What threat could they possibly pose? Continue the conquest as planned. The human delegation was led by Captain Hansol, a compact woman with a quiet voice and watchful eyes. While her diplomatic team negotiated formal alliance terms, she requested immediate access to Ardani defense systems. Your technology is far more advanced than ours, she explained to Jai Yun as they walked through a command center. But you've designed it for efficiency and beauty, not survival. What do you mean? Jai Yun asked. Hansol gestured to a nearby defense control station. Your systems fail completely when damaged. Ours are ugly because we build them to keep working even when half destroyed. She pointed to a holographic display of an Ardani defense grid. You've created perfect systems that expect perfect conditions. We can help you make them imperfect but survivable. Over the next 6 weeks, human military advisors worked alongside Ardani engineers. They made what Hansol called simple fixes, introducing deliberate inefficiencies, backup systems, and manual overrides. Most importantly, they taught the Ardani how to think like creatures from a death world. Always expect the worst, plan for failure, and never follow predictable patterns. When the Mrekthar fleet attacked the Ardani's 3rd largest colony, they expected another easy victory. Instead, their first wave encountered scattered, seemingly random defense patterns. When they adapted and pressed forward, the patterns changed again. Whenever they believed they had broken through, new obstacles appeared. They're fighting wrong, reported a confused Mrekthar commander to the Queen. Their defenses should have failed by now, but they keep changing. The Queen dispatched her elite forces, certain they would overwhelm whatever tricks these soft creatures had implemented. 3 days later, half her fleet in that sector had been destroyed or disabled. They don't fight like any species we've encountered, reported the sector commander before his signal went dark. They adapt too quickly. In the command center of Crystallis Prime, Jai Yun watched in amazement as the holographic display showed Mrekthar ships retreating for the first time. How did you know this would work? She asked Hansol, who stood quietly observing the battle data. Because on Earth, those who survive aren't the strongest or the fastest, Hansol replied. They're the ones who adapt. Your people built perfect systems. We taught them how to embrace imperfection. She smiled slightly. The Mrekthar fight like a perfect machine. But machines break when they meet the unexpected. As news of the victory spread, more human advisors arrived through the wormhole. The tide of war hadn't turned yet, but for the first time, the Ardani had hope. And the Mrekthar had discovered something they had never experienced before: uncertainty. The sky above Colony Helios burned orange with chemical fires. What had once been a beautiful Ardeni settlement was now a landscape of twisted metal and shattered crystal. The Mrekthar attack had come without warning, a desperate strike against one of the few remaining Ardeni strongholds. Lieutenant Sumin stood at the edge of the wreckage, her human body adapting to conditions that would kill most galactic species. The environmental sensors on her wrist showed the local temperature at nearly 50 degrees Celsius, with toxic chemicals filling the air. Behind her stood the mixed rescue team, 4 humans and 3 Ardani, all wearing environmental suits. Only the humans had removed their helmets. "The suits will slow us down," Sumin had explained when they landed. "We can handle the heat." Her Ardani second-in-command, Voth, had protested. "Lieutenant, the atmospheric toxins are within human tolerance levels." She had finished for him. "We breathe worse on some Earth cities." Now she wiped sweat from her brow and checked her scanner. Life signs detected in 3 locations. Team Alpha, take the eastern sector. Team Beta, western structures. Voth, you're with me for central approach. The teams split up, moving carefully through the destruction. Sumin led Voth toward the colony's central hub, where the scanner showed faint life signs. The route took them through a burning administration building, its crystal walls melting in the intense heat. "We should go around," Voth suggested, his environmental suit already showing temperature warnings. Sumin shook her head. "Too slow. Survivors don't have time." Without hesitation, she entered the burning structure. Voth followed, his body trembling inside his protective gear. Even with the suit's cooling systems at maximum, he could feel the heat threatening to crystallize his internal fluids. Yet the human walked ahead of him without protection, her skin glistening with sweat, but otherwise showing no distress. They found the survivors in what had been a medical bay. 2 Ardeni colonists lay trapped under fallen debris, their crystalline bodies cracked but intact. Their environmental suits had failed, and they were slowly dying in the heat. "Help me lift this," Sumin ordered, positioning herself under a massive beam. Together, they freed the colonists. Sumin immediately checked their condition, applying emergency patches to their environmental suits from her pack. "They need evacuation now," she said. "Their bodies are beginning to crystallize from the heat." Without waiting for a response, she lifted one colonist onto her back. The Ardani was nearly as large as she was, but she stood without apparent effort. "Take the other one. Let's move." The journey back was arduous. Voth struggled with the weight of the injured colonist, his suit warning of critical temperature levels. Ahead of him, Sumin moved steadily, carrying her burden while navigating the treacherous terrain. Twice she stopped to help Voth when he stumbled, somehow finding the strength to support both him and her own charge. When they finally reached the medical transport, Sumin handed off her rescued colonist to the medical team and immediately turned back toward the ruins. "Lieutenant, where are you going?" Voth called after her. "Scanner picked up more life signs in the northern quadrant," she replied without stopping. "But the teams are all ready." "Not Ardani life signs," she interrupted. "Mrekthar." Voth froze. "Enemy survivors." "Still survivors," Sumin said simply and continued walking. Voth hesitated, then followed. His training told him to let enemy combatants perish. The Mrekthar had shown no mercy to Ardani civilians, yet something in the human's determination compelled him to follow. They found 3 Mrekthar soldiers in the wreckage of their downed ship. The insectoid warriors were badly injured, their chitinous exoskeletons cracked, and their breathing labored. One still clutched a weapon, though it was too weak to raise it. Sumin kicked the weapon away and knelt beside the injured enemies. From her pack, she produced medical supplies and began treating the most severely wounded Mrekthar. "What are you doing?" Voth asked in disbelief. "Stabilizing them for transport," she replied without looking up. But yesterday, Voth stopped, memories flooding back. Just the previous day, he had watched Sumin lead an assault on a Mrekthar position. She had moved with lethal efficiency, personally eliminating 6 enemy soldiers with precise shots. He had never seen such calculated violence. "I don't understand," Voth finally admitted. "Yesterday I watched you eliminate an entire Mrekthar squadron without hesitation. Today you risk your life to save them." Su-Min continued working as she answered. "They're not fighting now. They're just injured. But they would kill you if positions were reversed." She nodded. "Probably. That's their choice. This is mine." By the time the medical transport arrived, Su-Min had stabilized all 3 Mrekthar. The medical team, composed entirely of Ardani, hesitated when they saw who the patients were. "Lieutenant, we don't have protocols for enemy medical care," the team leader said. "Use the same protocols you would for anyone else," Su-Min replied. "They're patients now, not enemies." Later that night, back at the forward base, Voth found Su-Min in the mess hall. She sat alone, eating a ration bar and studying a tactical display on her tablet. The attack and rescue had lasted 14 hours, yet she showed few signs of fatigue. "May I join you?" Voth asked. She nodded, pushing a chair out with her foot. "The colonists will recover," he told her. "Your quick actions saved them." "Good. The Mrekthar are stable too. High Command is debating what to do with them." Su-Min looked up. "Treat them according to galactic conventions on prisoners of war, then exchange them when possible." "After what they've done to our people." "That's how it works," she interrupted. "Otherwise, what's the point of any of this?" Voth studied her for a long moment. "How do you do it? Switch between warrior and healer so easily." Su-Min set down her tablet. "It's not a switch. It's the same thing. Violence and compassion are opposites," Voth said. "Not for us," she replied. "On Earth, those who protect sometimes must fight. Those who fight must remember why they're fighting. If we lose either part, we become something less than human." Later that night, Voth sent a private message to Ardani High Command. He struggled to find the right words to explain what he had witnessed. Finally, he wrote, "The humans don't just survive their death world. They were forged by it in ways we cannot comprehend. Their capacity for both violence and compassion exists without contradiction in their minds. What makes them dangerous is not their ability to withstand conditions that would kill us, nor their skill in combat. It is that they can be utterly ruthless one moment and profoundly merciful the next, and to them, this is perfectly natural. They do not see these as opposing forces, but as 2 sides of the same instinct. I believe this is the key to understanding them, and perhaps to our survival." Dr. Dae-Jung stood in the dim light of the war room aboard the Ardani flagship Crystal Spear. Around him sat the combined military leadership of the Human-Ardani Alliance. 6 months of war against the Mrekthar had brought some victories, but the insectoid invaders still controlled most of Ardani space. Time was running out. "We cannot win through conventional warfare," Admiral Kaiwan, the human military commander, had just finished explaining. "The Mrekthar reproductive cycle is too fast. For every ship we destroy, they build 3 more. The mood in the room was grim. Even with human ingenuity bolstering Ardani technology, the sheer numbers of the Mrekthar seemed insurmountable. The hive mind species coordinated perfectly in battle, adapting to new tactics almost instantly. "If I may speak," Dr. Dae-Jung said quietly. All eyes turned to the small, unassuming human. Unlike the military personnel, he wore no uniform, just simple civilian clothes. His role as xenobiologist had been primarily advisory until now. "The floor is yours, Doctor," Admiral Kaiwan nodded. Dae-Jung activated the central holographic display. It showed the neural pattern of a captured Mrekthar drone. "For the past 3 months, my team has been studying how the Mrekthar hive mind functions," he began. "We've made a breakthrough." The display shifted to show a complex network of signals between Mrekthar ships and ground forces. "The Mrekthar don't just communicate. They share consciousness," Dae-Jung explained. "Each individual exists simultaneously as a separate entity and as part of the greater whole." "We know this," said General Lith, the highest-ranking Ardani officer. "It's why they coordinate so effectively." "Yes," Dae-jung nodded. "But it's also their greatest weakness." The room fell silent. Dae-jung's voice remained calm as he presented his findings to the Joint Military Command. The Mrekthar communication network can be disrupted. Not with force, with ideas. Ideas? General Lith looked confused. "I don't understand." "Concepts they cannot integrate. Their hive requires consensus. We'll give them contradictions." Dae-jung touched the display, bringing up images of human art, musical notations, philosophical texts, and mathematical paradoxes. The Mrekthar process information collectively. Their strength comes from unified understanding. But humans, he paused, humans excel at creating content that demands individual interpretation. Admiral Kaiwan leaned forward. "You're suggesting psychological warfare." "Precisely," Dae-jung nodded. "The Mrekthar cannot comprehend how different individuals might interpret the same information differently. When faced with content that has multiple valid interpretations, their consensus breaks down." "This seems far-fetched," General Lith said skeptically. "How could art defeat warships?" Dae-jung pulled up data from a small-scale test they had conducted on captured Mrekthar drones. "We exposed 5 connected drones to human poetry. Their neural network experienced cascading failures trying to reach consensus on the correct interpretation. It took them 3 days to re-establish stable communication." The military leaders exchanged glances. It sounded impossible, yet the data was compelling. "What exactly are you proposing, Doctor?" Admiral Kaiwan asked. "We flood their communication networks with human creativity in all its chaotic glory. Music that can be interpreted in multiple ways, visual art with ambiguous meaning, philosophical paradoxes, even humor, something the Mrekthar have no concept for." The strategy was approved that same day. Over the next week, human cultural experts worked alongside Ardani engineers to create transmission systems that could penetrate Mrekthar communication frequencies. They compiled the most subjective human creations, abstract art, poetry, music without clear emotional direction, optical illusions, jokes, and paradoxes. Their first target was the Mrekthar fleet approaching Outpost Sigma, a small but strategic Ardani monitoring station. Instead of evacuating or preparing defenses, they filled the outpost with thousands of transmitters. When the Mrekthar fleet arrived, they encountered no resistance. Their sensors detected no weapon systems, no shields, just an abandoned outpost. Then the transmissions began. Across every Mrekthar communication channel flooded human culture. Classical music gave way to jazz improvisations. Renaissance paintings morphed into abstract expressionism. Philosophical questions without answers. Mathematical paradoxes, jokes that required cultural context to understand. From the safety of a cloaked observation ship, Dae-jung and a small team watched the Mrekthar fleet's response. At first, the ships maintained formation, their movements precise and coordinated. Then subtle changes began. Ships drifted slightly out of position. Communication patterns became erratic. "It's working," whispered one of the Ardani scientists. Within 3 hours, the perfect formation had dissolved. Some ships moved forward while others retreated. Several spun in place, all coordination lost. By the 5th hour, the command ship began emitting emergency pulses, trying to re-establish order. "This is better than we hoped," Dae-jung said, watching the chaos unfold. They intercepted fragments of Mrekthar communications. Most were unintelligible, but one clear message from a sub-commander was transmitted widely. "This is worse than their weapons. They're infecting us with their thinking." By the 7th hour, the entire fleet retreated in disarray, leaving Outpost Sigma untouched. The victory was achieved without firing a single shot. News of the success spread quickly through the alliance. Within days, the strategy was implemented across all fronts. Human cultural archives became the most valuable weapon in the war. Every Ardani ship was equipped with transmitters loaded with contradictory ideas, ambiguous art, and unsolvable puzzles. The effect on the Mrekthar war machine was devastating. Their perfect coordination shattered when faced with information that required individual interpretation. Battle groups became isolated as the Hive struggled to reach consensus on how to process the flood of human creativity. 1 month after the first deployment of what troops now called cognitive weapons, the Mrekthar launched a desperate counteroffensive. Their ships now operated in smaller, isolated groups to limit the spread of disruptive ideas. They avoided direct communication, relying instead on pre-planned strategies. Dajung stood once again before the Joint Command, but this time with optimism. "They're adapting," he explained, "but their adaptation makes them weaker. By fragmenting their consciousness to avoid our transmissions, they're sacrificing their greatest strength, their unity." "How long can this advantage last?" General Lith asked. "Indefinitely," Dajung replied. "They cannot evolve individual consciousness quickly enough to counter this strategy. The more they isolate to avoid contamination, the less effective they become as a hive." After the meeting, Admiral Kaiwan found Dajung in his lab. "You've given us a fighting chance," the Admiral said. "But I'm curious, how did you think of this approach?" "Most of our military strategists were focused on conventional weapons." Dajung smiled slightly. "On Earth, we lived for thousands of years with contradictory ideas. Different religions, political systems, artistic movements, all existing simultaneously. We learned to thrive in cognitive chaos. The Mrekthar never had to develop that ability. So our greatest weapon against them is our humanity," Dajung finished. "Our messy, contradictory, beautiful humanity." The Mrekthar Royal Hive ship loomed against the stars, its massive form resembling a giant wasp nest made of dark metal. Inside its central chamber, surrounded by guard drones and advisors, the Queen waited. Her enormous body, nearly 4 times the size of her largest warriors, rested on a throne of secreted resin. She had lived for 200 years and led the Mrekthar through dozens of successful conquests. Never before had she requested a peace talk. The human delegation's shuttle docked at the Hive ship's main port. Ambassador Ju-1 stepped out first, followed by a small security team. Unlike most diplomatic missions, she wore no special protective gear despite the Mrekthar atmosphere being slightly toxic to humans. It was a calculated statement, showing both trust and the famous human resilience. The guards led her through winding corridors designed for insectoid bodies. Ju-1 noticed how the Mrekthar workers scurried away when they saw her. Not in fear, she realized, but in confusion. Their hive minds struggled to process her very existence, an individual from a species that had shattered their perfect consensus. When she entered the Queen's chamber, the assembled Mrekthar fell silent. The Queen's massive head turned slowly toward her, compound eyes reflecting the dim purple light. "You stand before us unarmed," the Queen said, her voice a complex series of clicks translated by Ju-1's earpiece. "Brave or foolish?" "Neither," Ju-1 replied. "Just hopeful." The Queen's antennae twitched, a sign of curiosity according to the briefing materials. "Speak your purpose, human." Ju-1 stepped forward until she stood directly before the massive ruler. The guards tensed, but the Queen waved them back. "We could continue this war," she said simply. "We have the means to win it. But we're offering you something else. Peace." A ripple of clicking sounds passed through the chamber, the Mrekthar equivalent of murmuring. "Our victory is inevitable," Ju-1 continued. "Your fleets are scattered. Your hive communion is disrupted. But total victory would mean near extinction for your people. We don't want that." The Queen's confusion was evident even across the species barrier. "You've demonstrated superior force. Why not use it?" "Because that's not who we want to be," Ju-1 replied. "On our world, survival often meant cooperation rather than domination. We learned that lesson through millennia of hardship." The Queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed subtly. Explain. Earth is a death world, Ju 1 said. Everything there tries to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the ground itself through earthquakes and volcanoes. For most of our history, we fought each other too. But we learned something important. Those who cooperate survive better than those who only compete. She took a small device from her pocket and activated it. A hologram appeared between them. Images of Earth's history, from primitive tribes to modern civilization. We tried domination, Ju 1 explained as the images showed wars and destruction. It nearly destroyed us multiple times, but we also tried working together. The images shifted to show international cooperation, scientific achievements, and peaceful gatherings. Your species, the Queen's antennae, moved slowly as she processed this information. You are not unified like us, yet you do not destroy yourselves with chaos. We find strength in our differences, Ju 1 said, just as you find strength in your unity. Perhaps there's a middle path we could both learn from. 3 days later, the first peace accord between humans and Rekthar was signed. The terms were generous. The Mrekthar would withdraw from Ardeni space, but retain 2 uninhabited systems they had conquered. A formal apology would be issued to the Ardani people, along with reparations. In exchange, humans would share medical technology to help the Mrekthar treat those affected by the cognitive disruption weapons. Most surprisingly, the agreement included a cultural exchange program. Select Mrekthar would be invited to study human individuality, while human scientists would learn about hive consciousness. The news shocked the galactic community. The Council of Galactic Species convened an emergency session, with representatives from all 17 member races attending. For the first time, Earth was invited to send a formal representative. Ambassador Tahoe, who had first observed humans years earlier, now stood as Earth's official delegate. The irony was not lost on him as he took the podium in the Great Crystal Chamber. Honored representatives, he began, looking around at the diverse assembly of beings. When I first visited Earth, my mission was to determine if humans posed a threat to galactic stability. Today, I stand before you as proof that we are capable of far more than destruction. The chamber was silent, all attention focused on the human. You asked what makes humans the scariest Deathworlders. It's not our resilience or our technology. It's that we contain multitudes. We can fight viciously and love deeply, often within the same moment. We survived our world not by conquering it, but by embracing its contradictions and making them our own. He gestured to the Mrekthar representative, who now sat among them. We have turned an enemy into a potential friend not through superior firepower, but through understanding. This is the true strength of humanity, not that we can destroy, but that we choose not to when given the chance. The Council voted that day to offer Earth probationary membership, a process that normally took decades. The Ardani representative, whose people had nearly faced extinction, was among the most vocal supporters. 5 years passed. In the newly established Cultural Exchange Center on the neutral planet Harmonium, a human child named Min and a young Rekthar called Tikra sat together in a garden designed to accommodate both species. The human girl was showing the insectoid youth how to draw with crayons. But there is no right way to draw a flower. Tikra clicked in confusion, his mandibles twitching. That's the whole point, Min explained patiently. You draw it how you see it. How I see it, the young Rekthar repeated, the concept still strange but fascinating. He made a series of colorful lines that looked nothing like a flower to human eyes. That's beautiful, Min said earnestly. It is how I see it, Tikra said with growing confidence. Now show me how you see it. As they drew together, an Ardani teacher watched from nearby, still amazed at how quickly things had changed. The war that had nearly destroyed her people had somehow led to this moment. Former enemies learning from each other. In her reports back to the Ardani homeworld, she always ended with the same observation. The humans did not save us by being the strongest warriors, though they are formidable. They saved us by being the best teachers, showing both us and the Mrekthar that different ways of thinking can coexist. Perhaps this is what truly makes them the scariest Deathworlders, not their ability to survive, but their capacity to help others thrive alongside them. The end.